Hi, I'm Bob Archer. I am with CE Pro Magazine, and today I am speaking with Mark Corbin from Vanco. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Bob. How are you doing?
Awesome, thank you. Today we're going to talk about HDMI 2.1 and home theater and what's going on out in the market and how important cabling is to all these new formats that are floating around out there.
Of course. Yeah, it's a big topic right now, Bob. Big topic.
Okay, getting right into it. The home theater market is evolving, and we're set to move into some new technologies. We're also seeing 4K maturing, given all of this stuff with 8K, higher refresh rates, wide color gamuts, how is Vanco helping dealers to make this transition into these new formats and technologies?
Yeah, sure. We at Vanco, we've been a HDMI cable manufacturer for well over 15 plus years now, and one of the biggest things we look for is how can we make sure that this cable is certified, and how can we make sure that it's a legit cable, making sure that all your specs and certifications meet. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing when you're talking about the new 8K, higher refresh rates, wider color gamuts. You need to make sure that you're working directly with HDMI labs, which is what we do on a weekly basis. And we're using big companies like Teledyne and Astro to test and ensure that those cables will bring true specifications to the market. We're also in developments with HDMI 2.1 on sourcing, better sourcing equipment. That's a big thing, and we're looking to see more of that in Q3. But the most important thing with Vanco for us is to stay in direct contact with HDMI and work directly with their labs, because ultimately, if you're doing those specifications, we're making sure that we're helping all these dealers make sure they have a relevant cable with the specifications and make sure that it's certified within the market. And I think that's a really big point, is this took a while to handle this certification in 2.1 because of a lot of different specs, but now that it's out there, I think it's a very important program to have.
Okay, the driver for all of these new technologies is the HDMI 2.1 format, which includes higher bandwidth provisions and more. What does this mean for a company like Vanco? And in turn, what's it mean to AV industry professionals on the move from the 2.0 format to 2.1?
Sure. Bigger opportunities, right? So obviously bigger bandwidth, more capabilities, more possibilities in your cabling. Not only 8K and 10K are in the future for this, that type of bandwidth, but you also got to realize the 8K cable now builds is also definitely going to enhance even your 4K signals that are improving within the market. So I think what's really unique about the 2.1 is not only is it giving us the bandwidth to enhance 8K, 10K from a marketing standpoint, because as you know, the sources aren't quite there yet. We have some, but it's really actually improving that 4K signal even more too, because you got to realize there is a large bandwidth at this point. So we're not going to have any issues carrying even those 4K signals at the highest, color gamut and the highest frequency of transition rate. I think that is a really big point to point out, because again, even not every 4K source is streaming at this point, right? So it's really unique that not only is the cable going to produce those large frequencies, frequencies, but it's also going to be allowed to help this 4K resolution as well improve its quality. So I think that's a big feature that sometimes gets left out, is that we all automatically focus on 8K and 10K, but you forget the majority is played in 4K now, and that is going to be better. It's going to be a better quality picture with these cables just because of the speed rate alone.
Okay, how important specifically for dealers is it to find products that comply to the 2.1 specifications as we move into these new formats, and the priority for bandwidth becomes more emphasized?
Yeah, so I right now it's it's difficult to find everything with a 2.1 specification from a sourcing standpoint. I would say obviously from TV standpoints, cabling standpoints, it's there. But I think it's really important moving forward, right? I mean, anytime you're using a new spec, you probably want to try to match it with the newest spec. Now, obviously, devices should have, whether you're using extenders or matrices, it should have an EDID function that would allow any kind of resolution issues, whether it's mixed resolutions within a system. But in general, when you're dealing with an A to B connection, we always encourage, especially if you're using a 8K cable or a 2.1 cable, we definitely recommend, please try to find a specification that allows you for that 2.1 spec, because as you guys know, if you want to maximize your system, you want to try to line up the newest specs together. Now, that's not always possible, like I said, but in general, the rule of thumb is moving forward, you see TVs doing it, you're going to see everything else doing it. It's going to be the 2.1 spec. So we do encourage, as we move forward with splitters, switchers, those are all things that you should try to look for the new 2.1 spec. Absolutely.
Okay, Mark. I think one part of the new 2.1 spec that maybe gets overlooked a little bit because of the 8K, 10K, the 120 hertz refresh rates, and eARC, and some of the other things that are more prominent is the gaming options built into the specification. How important are these gaming options for the custom install industry as we move into mass acceptance of the HDMI 2.1 format?
Yeah, so this is a really good question, Bob, because right now some of your best sources are gaming sources, right? So Xbox X Series, and then you have PlayStation 5, right? So there's certain games that are compatible in 8K. If you have not seen the 8K gaming, it's unbelievable. It is pretty fantastic. We have obviously a lab upstairs that we test 100% here at Vanco. We're proud of that. So we get to test a lot of it upstairs. Incredible imagery. It's really important, this spec in gaming senses, because there's three main technologies, without going too crazy into it, that are featured in a 2.1 spec that have never been featured. One of them is VRR, okay, which is a variable refresh rate. They also have improved factors on the ALLM, which is auto low latency mode. And there is also another really important technology called QFT, which is quick frame transport. So when you're dealing with gaming, you have a lot of latency issues because of obviously control aspects, relaying controls to the source, as well as refresh rates can change depending on the game. So this is really important when dealing with gaming, because now we're going into a 48 gigabit speed rating, and we don't need to have latency issues. We don't need to have these, important ratio issues. Those all need to be auto controlled. In the HDMI 2.1, those specs are at an ultra high speed, and they can really enhance a gamer's perception of the video. So it's really unique. This cable is really fun right now because it's built really heavily towards the gaming industry, because those are the main sources that are using 8K. And I encourage you, if you get the chance, to check one out. The resolution is phenomenal. It is really fun to see.
Okay, Mark. A number of people I've spoken to are theorizing right now that for the moment and for the foreseeable future, that 48 gigabytes per second is the bandwidth capability of the 2.1 format will be enough to support the market for several years. First of all, do you agree with that? And secondly, what's so significant about this bandwidth capability?
Sure. Yes, I guess the main answer is yes. I think there is a ton of capability with this cable. I think the biggest thing for us is we always say future proofing, right? Future proofing is a big thing. When we jumped to 4K, we were future proofing. When we jumped to fiber cables, we claimed you're future proofing, right? As you know, 4K sources are finally becoming readily available and more available, especially streaming and even video sources or even cable companies. 8K is going to be a while. So I do feel, if you want to call it future proofing, yes, that's what we like to say, but the pipeline for this cable is huge. I mean, I talked about earlier, it even has it's probably even capable of bandwidths of 10K in the future. So I do believe the 2.1 spec will be around for a while. I think that it is definitely something you should move forward with, because it is going to enhance everything within your house. And given the fact that it can handle lower resolutions as well, there's definitely no hurt in utilizing a better performance cable. Now, at this time, the distances aren't real long in these cable lengths, but a lot of your sources are either streaming from an Apple TV or a box that allows those transmissions anyways, or a video source. So the smaller length cables are really the main things that are needed right now. I think as we start to develop the technology and chipsets to allow us to use longer length cables and make them active, again, you're just going to see this more of a future-proof system throughout homes, installations, because you've seen how long it's taken 4K to advance to now. I mean, we're not even at 8K yet, and I do believe this will hold up for a long time. Now, will there be changes in the specification 2.1? Possibly. Will they add maybe a power line at some point? We're not sure exactly what the future holds, but I do believe at the 48 gigabytes ratio, it's going to be held for quite some time.
Okay, Mark, you've given me the perfect segue for my final question. Should dealers wait for the format to mature, or should they start utilizing it now once the cables become available, so they can future-proof their clients right now? How should dealers address this format going forward for their clients and their businesses?
Sure. Great question. We're in the process right now of trying to make other products that accept 8K, like extenders and so forth. It's really important, in my opinion. Moving forward, if you have an installation or an opportunity to switch out a cable, let's face it, a cable is not going to cost you an extreme amount of money, and it's going to save you a lot of legwork down the road. So I think it's really highly important to, as we say, future-proof your home. Absolutely. I think it's a great idea. And again, because I mentioned before that these cables are even going to improve your 4K quality, I think it's really important. And that's even a selling point for dealers, in my opinion, and it's not just a selling point, it's a true fact. This cable will help your current system because it's a higher speed cable. I mean, it's gonna be able to produce a better image, and especially even in the gaming industry, which, let's face it, a lot of people are in gaming. It's a great idea to enhance your system and enhance your quality of picture, and that goes for every aspect of video. And again, I think when we could talk about cabling, it's not extremely expensive to replace those things, and it's a great way to future-proof your project.
Thank you, Mark. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to speak to me about this format, which is arguably probably the most important thing to hit the AV market in several years. Where can dealers go to learn more about Vanco?
Yeah, excellent. We're at Vanco1, that's the number 1.com, and we're also on Twitter and Facebook at Vanco International. And Bob, thank you so much for having me. These were really fun topics to talk about, and it's a really big part of our industry right now. So thank you for the invite and the great questions.
Thank you, Mark, and have a great day.
You too. Thanks.